He who believes in perform, reform and transform. A man of action, the man of the hour. 7th October. Today is the day which celebrates leadership, which truly honors dedication. A day which inspires the spirit of Seva or Samarpan among all. Prime Minister Narendra Modi completes continuous 20 years as head of government. The 2 decades being dotted by one brilliant policy decision after another. It can be well intriguing to know where an inspired leader such as Modi finds his inspiration from. Well, let's do exactly that. Hello and welcome to New India Junction. I am Richa Dwivedi and today let's attempt to paint a sketch of Narendra Damodar Das Modi, the man behind a new Indian surge. So I finished my juice, made a digital payment for it, and that reminds me of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The fact that he has always been a tech-savvy politician. The fact that he was amongst the first leaders in India to adapt to technology, be it emails or social media, is not hidden. In fact, did you know Modi was perhaps one of the first politicians in India to own a digital camera? In his early days as a pracharak, he is known to have been devising innovative ways to reach people. Let us tell you one interesting incident that happened during the Ekta Yatra in the early 1990s. To be able to pass on his message from the front end of the Yatra convoy to the last person in the crowd.
Voice recording. Yes, you heard it right.
Modi used a cassette recorder to record his message and passed on the cassette. This cassette and his message reached the last person in the chain, the way he intended it to. It is the very same man when took charge as Gujarat's Chief Minister and then as India's Prime Minister, took technology as a serious medium, a tool to take his message to the larger public, be it his campaigns or governance and welfare. The man who led India's digital revolution, from being India's first state to bring e-governance portal Swagat in Gujarat, or the state's e-Gram Vishwagram initiative, video interaction with farmers during the month-long Krishi Mahotsav, to the innumerable pan-Indian successes like the Digital India Mission, the DBT network, and even his Mann Ki Baat addresses. Narendra Modi has ensured when India did it, it did go Dil Se digital. Every year on Diwali, I'm home with my family, and so is he. Prime Minister Narendra Modi makes it a point to spend Diwali with the armed forces. Such has always been the tradition. He took everyone by surprise when he flew to be there with our warriors at Ladakh's Nimu. His every word emboldening their spirit more so. As a little boy too, assisting his father at a tea stall on the Vadnagar railway station, Modi fondly interacted with soldiers on trains. From the boy who wanted to join the armed forces to the leader that he is now, standing like a rock behind him to serve the interests of soldiers meant serving the nation, the ultimate form of Seva or Samarpan. So how would such a man react when he finds out that our heroes were deprived of something as basic as drinking water? During his tenure as Gujarat's Chief Minister, Narendra Modi took upon himself to replace a worn-down pipeline that took drinking water to a BSF camp, unfastening a bureaucratic deadlock which was preventing water to reach our soldiers. Such is the man that Modi has always been. Even when it was no responsibility of his, on his orders, his government's water supply department swiftly laid the pipeline to address the BSF's concerns about drinking water. Today under him, India is seeing every need of our armed forces being fulfilled one after the other, be it bulletproof jackets, OROP, or the much needed expansion in capital expenditure in the defense sector. Equipping our men in uniform with Atmanirbhar weaponry or honouring their martyrdom with a long-due national war memorial. For Narendra Modi, serving our soldiers' needs and standing behind them has always been Parmo Dharma.
It is India's moment today. It is India's sporting moment now. More medals than the all-time medal tally at the Paralympics, the highest ever medal tally at the Olympics with a gold medal in athletics. The recent string of international sporting accolades point towards an undeniable trend in the making. India is waking up to sports. And it has not been a coincidence. Modi has personally worked on creating a sporting culture in India. It was not long ago when he launched the Khel Mahakumbh in Gujarat in 2010, an Olympic-style event which later on in 2013 encouraged specially abled children to compete. And 1 lakh Divyang children too. It is the same Modi from Gujarat who could be seen in pictures motivating Paralympic players from the state who were headed to the Commonwealth Games. From Gujarat will play, Gujarat will win to cheer for India. Today, Modi's constant push for sports can be associated with the Target Olympic Podium Scheme or TOPS, the Khelo India Games, and even goes back to the Fit India movement. When the Prime Minister of a nation takes out the time to personally greet, tweet and call up players to speak to them at the games, it becomes quite obvious why it can be a subject of envy for players from other countries. Why this personal motivation can prove to be a motivation for an entire generation of players from India. Peacocks keep him company. Parrots climb on his arm for play. From patting a baby calf, feeding watermelons to an elephant, to photographing a tiger. An aspect of Narendra Modi's personality that isn't discussed as often as his love for the wild and everything that lives there, be it animals, birds or vegetation. When he was the Gujarat Chief Minister, Prime Minister Modi took every chance he got to promote the natural beauty of the state. Have you noticed the logo for Gujarat tourism? Can you spot the mighty Asiatic lion of Gir? There are, of course, no prizes to guess who was the Chief Minister that supervised this switch. Chief Minister Modi and his government's initiatives also worked towards increasing the lion population in Gir, that too quite significantly. As Prime Minister, therefore, it is no surprise that we have seen Project Tiger, Project Lion, Project Dolphin, etc. Even our infrastructure is now becoming wildlife friendly. Take the new section of National Highway 44 that passes through the Kanha Pench Tiger Reserve. This new section has several elevated parts, one as long as 750 meters, just to allow the wildlife to pass without any threat. For someone who believes that protecting the environment is an integral part of our culture, our ancient values, this comes but of course naturally. One meeting with the man and all bottlenecks resolved, such as Modi's style of working. Pointing fingers at each other was the norm. But Prime Minister Modi with his Pragati meetings brought everyone together and straightened out everything with every level of officials of every department in one go. In fact, there's an interesting incident to this point. CMO Gujarat once received a complaint from a widow in regards to the tedious process of form filling to obtain widow's pension from the state's department. Modi, being Modi, immediately took it upon himself to rectify the situation. Solving it one time wouldn't help. Modi made his officers fill up the form themselves, essentially bringing the people behind the window in front of it. When none could fill the form themselves, it led to embarrassment, followed up by a realization and significant simplification of the forms. As Chief Minister, he wanted to conduct a special training program for the entire cabinet on good governance, all because he wanted public money to be spent only for public good. Sure enough, the entire Gujarat cabinet and their Chief Minister headed to IIM Ahmedabad for a one-day workshop in 2003. He also started brainstorming sessions for better governance and called them Chintan Shibers. Roadblock to no block. That seems to be the Modi way. What motivates such selfless acts of seva? A 60-year-old widow donated her entire life savings of rupees 10 lakh to PM CARES fund. Why the love? Every year women, especially Muslim women from across the country, send Rakhis to Prime Minister Modi. Who is supporting him silently and why? There must be a reason why women voter turnout surpassed male voter turnout in 2019 for the very first time. Today, 80% of houses under Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana are owned by women. Women who have been the center of all his policies. Women who now lead a smoke-free, dignified life and are fast becoming India's wealth creators. The work Modi has put in for empowering women has earned him immense respect from the women in our nation, the daughters of India. Let us recall one such daughter's story who hailed from Maninagar. Her parents couldn't afford to bear the steep hospital bills right after she was delivered. Her father was advised to ask Chief Minister Modi for help. When he showed the bill to the guard at the Chief Minister residence, Narendra Modi himself walked out and heard the man's plight. He then handed him a letter, essentially waving off the entire bill. The stories ought to put a smile on your face. Under his leadership, Gujarat saw several women-centric welfare schemes like the Chiranjeevi Yojana, E-Mamta, Kanya Kilavadi and Mission Mangalam. The state of Gujarat had also started its own state nutrition mission. The Gujarat template metamorphosed into schemes like Pradhan Mantri Surakshit Matritva Abhiyan, the Poshan Abhiyan, extension of maternity leaves, Ujjwala, the Beti Bachao Beti Padhao Abhiyan, Mudra, Sukanya Samriddhi, Surakshit Matritva, Stand Up, Matruvandana. When Modi speaks about women empowerment, he takes it very seriously. Not a day goes by when Indians collectively thank their stars that it was Modi whose government was in power in India when the pandemic reared its ugly head upon us. I am talking of disaster management, something for which Modi has set a template. No, literally, it was the Gujarat Assembly which in 2003 passed the Gujarat State Disaster Management Act, becoming the first state to have a legal and regulatory framework for disaster management. Let's go to Morbi in Gujarat. This was a time when our Prime Minister was a young Swayam Sevak. He had gone there to assist with relief efforts in the aftermath of massive floods, but he saw within the town a sense of hopelessness and despair. A young Modi penned his thoughts in a letter to the townspeople, telling them it was their town and how well it emerges from a disaster will be determined directly by how they respond. He delivered the letter door to door, and the very next day there stood a massive number of young volunteers ready to help bring their town back to life. Modi as Chief Minister built Gujarat's Kutch literally brick by brick, going beyond disaster management and turning the earthquake-hit desert into a striving economic hub and a world tourist spot. What Modi did in Kutch is nothing short of exemplary. Today, an effective management of the COVID-19 pandemic also owes its success to Modi's ace management skills. Do you remember the Janta curfew? The feeling of uncertainty. For us young people, it was probably the first time we saw a shutdown as big as that. But then we rallied because we understood that frontline workers were actually putting their lives at risk to keep us safe. We rallied behind a leader we trusted. During the lockdown, when we were unsure of how things will be, when business people wondered if the shutters would ever go up again, we saw lamps being lit by our neighbors, our distant relatives, an online friend we had made during the lockdown, by our Prime Minister. Those lamps told us that we were in it together, that we'll win this too, and we'll do it together. Such has been Narendra Modi's journey as an elected representative, starting with a state and now for a country of over 1 billion people. Every single life that he has touched on the way, and there have been far too many to count, has become brighter and better. From every experience Prime Minister Modi has learned, every learning has been a step towards evolution. Every evolution for him has been an opportunity for India to grow along with him. And grown we have as a people, a nation and a culture. We hope this journey continues to inspire and motivate so that growth, development, progress and self-reliance may become the new Indian success story. Dhanyavad and Namaste.